Guardians, Episode Heresy brought one of the coolest exotic weapons, Barrow Dyad. As we've unlocked more and more perks and catalysts for it, I've started using it more, and let me tell you, this thing cooks. Let's get into it. Barrow Dyad is a Strand SMG that will generate blight while dealing damage. Depending on how much blight you build up, when reloading, you'll load up to 6 blight rounds. Now, you can choose either Taken Resolution or Taken Ambition, and this will change what the blight rounds actually do. I like the Taken Ambition rounds better overall, but especially for this build. This means as you deal damage to a single target, you'll generate more and more blight. But more importantly, these rounds will now deal impact and explosive damage, and will be dealing more overall damage than the Taken Resolution counterpart. And this weapon will also reload itself every 0.2 seconds while not shooting. Now, the important part is the catalyst. High Impact Reserves is really consistent for dealing more damage, but one of the more fun catalysts is hatchling. And that's because with this build, we're bringing the exotic legs, Peacekeepers. For those that don't know, Peacekeepers recently got a rework, and now every hit with an SMG will give a stacking damage boost that can stack up to 20 times for a total of 100% more damage at its cap. Now, the buff only lasts for 1 second, so every time you reload, you'll have to build it back up again. However, with Barrow Dyad reloading itself every 0.2 seconds, you could technically perpetually keep that damage buff. Though in most cases, I like to work up to max stacks of blight and then reload, because man, those blight rounds hit like a tank, even without the Peacekeepers buff. The beauty of this is that on really tough targets, you can stay locked on, dealing more and more damage as your clip gets closer to empty, and with High Impact Reserves, you'll deal even more damage. Since this season has Horde Shuttle, I'm recommending High Impact Reserves, but outside of this season, I'd probably recommend Hatchling to make this an ad clearing machine. So let's dive into the build and break down how it works. For the super, I'm taking Thunder Crash for its total damage output. However, if you want more survivability and a way to weaken the boss, Twilight Arsenal is also a good option. For the class ability, I went with Thrusters mainly for its shorter cooldown, though you could run Towering Barricade if you want that extra protection. For the melee, I went with Thunderclap, and this is mainly because it not only deals some really good damage, but while charging it up, you gain up to 80% damage resistance, making it a pretty safe option to use. For the grenade, I opted for the Glacial Grenade, and this is mainly because of our later fragments. However, this also gives you a way to instantly stun unstoppable champs. And when it comes to the aspects, I first like to bring Knockout, and this pairs perfectly with Thunderclap to give you a way to take less damage and instantly gain a burst of health. And the other beautiful thing is how this aspect pairs with our second aspect. See, after breaking an enemy shield or damaging a weak enemy, you'll gain the Knockout buff, and while active, your normal melees count as a powered melee, and that's important for our second aspect because we're taking Diamond Lance. Now, any ability kill will spawn a Diamond Lance. These lances can be thrown at targets to instantly freeze them, or you can use your melee button to slam it at your feet, dealing damage, shattering crystals, and most importantly, gaining 2 stacks of Frost Armor. Each stack of Frost Armor will give 6.25% damage resistance, and caps out at 5 stacks, meaning that at any given moment, you can have up to 31% damage resistance. So I use this to help with my overall survivability. And when it comes to the fragments, for our first fragment, I'm taking Facet of Ruin. That way, all of our shatter damage will have increased size and damage, and this pairs perfectly with both the Glacier Grenade and Diamond Lances. Next, I take Facet of Courage. That way, all light-based abilities will deal 10% more damage against enemies affected by a darkness debuff. This is mainly for our super, since we can easily unravel or freeze an enemy to immediately pop our super for more damage. Then I take Facet of Balance. That way, rapid light-based kills will give melee energy, and rapid darkness-based kills will give grenade energy. We can melt with our Strand SMG, so this amounts to a ton of grenade energy. Then I went with Facet of Purpose. That way, when we pick up an orb, we get a buff based on our super. For Thunder Crash, you can now start building up Bolt Charge, but if you want more survivability, this is where Twilight Arsenal is the better option, offering you a Void Overshield that has 70% damage resistance. And finally, I take Facet of Protection, so that we gain 15% damage resistance while surrounded. And if you're enjoying the video, leaving a like and subscribing would be much appreciated. Alright, let's get right back to it. So, what does this look like in action? Well, the beautiful thing about Peacekeeper builds is that it can be stupid simple. Just fry with your SMG. For the most part, you can melt any target, but when facing mini bosses, I like to load my blight rounds before dealing damage. That way, I can deal a ton of burst damage, making it super easy to melt them. Otherwise, when getting low on health, charge up that Thunderclap and blast a group of enemies to immediately gain a burst of health. And going into boss phases, I like to create an orb. That way, I can proc unraveling rounds for Barrow Dyad. which makes it super easy to proc a darkness debuff, and then immediately pop your super for a ton of burst damage, and this will also activate your weapon surge. You can use your SMG on the right boss, but otherwise unload your heavy ammo to deal a ton of burst damage. So let's talk about ways to improve the build. For stats, I like to shoot for 100 in resilience. Then I go for as much strength and discipline as possible. And when it comes to the armor mods, for the helmet mods, I first like to take a Strand Siphon mod. That way I can help create a ton of orbs by getting rapid kills with Barrow Dyad. And then I'm also bringing Heavy Ammo Finder to create heavy ammo more often. And since this is an exotic primary, it will create more heavy ammo bricks by using Barrow Dyad, which is why I'm also bringing Heavy Ammo Scout, so that bricks that we create will also give our teammates ammo. And when it comes to the gauntlet mods, I'm first bringing Heavy Handed. That way, power melee kills will create an orb every 10 seconds. This can activate while you have the knockout perk active, so that normal melees will also create an orb. Then I take Momentum Transfer, so that dealing damage with a grenade will give back more melee energy. And I also like to bring a Strand Loader, so that my Strand weapons will reload quicker, which is great since we will be bringing 2 Strand weapons. As for the chest mods, like with most builds in most content, I'm recommending 3 resistance mods, 2 elemental resistance to match the activity, and then 1 concussive dampener. But the most important thing is to just match it to the activity and the enemies that you'll be facing, or if there's an active threat. As for the leg mods, I first like to take recuperation. That way, whenever we pick up an orb, we gain a bump of health, helping with our overall survivability. Then I like to take 2 Strand weapon surges, so that we can boost our Strand weapon damage by 17%. This helps with Barrow Dyad, but is also another reason why I like to bring a Strand heavy weapon to output even more damage in boss phases. As for the class mods, I first bring Reaper. That way, after we use our class ability, our next weapon kill will create an orb. Then I bring Powerful Attraction to pick up any nearby orbs on class ability usage. And finally, I bring Outreach, so whenever we use our class ability, we gain back some melee energy. When it comes to the artifact, there are 2 main perks that you want. First, you want Unraveling Orbs. That way, whenever you pick up an orb, your Strand weapons will get Unraveling rounds. And yes, this helps output more damage, but it also allows you to stun barrier champs. And this can also be boosted, and when boosted, you'll get another 5% Strand weapon damage on Strand debuff targets. And second, you want to bring Horde Shuttle. That way, dealing damage to unraveled enemies will create Threadlings. This will proc constantly and can be boosted so that Threadlings will also sever targets, making them output less damage. After that, I really like Disruptor Spike so that severed and exhausted targets will output even less damage. And I also like King's Vestige so that after defeating an elite or higher Taken enemy, your next hit will send out 3 Taken projectiles that deal damage and exhaust enemies, which now gives you the ability to easily stun all 3 champions. And of course, we want to take Limit Break to amp up our super damage by 30% when we have an element matching buff. Because we have Facet of Purpose, this means we can easily pick up an orb to immediately gain that matching buff. As for the weapons, in the kinetic slot, we're of course bringing Barrow Dyad. Again, I like the Taken Ambition perk better. And for the catalyst, I'd either go with High Impact Reserves or Hatchling. For the energy slot, I'm bringing an Area Denial Grenade Launcher. Psycho Pump can roll with Envious Arsenal and Rolling Storm, so that it can be auto-reloaded and easily generate more bolt charge for you. Otherwise, Velocity Baton is a great alternative. I'd go for either a Repulsor Brace and Destabilizing Rounds roll, or Demo and Attrition Orbs roll. Both are good options. Finally, in the heavy slot, there are some really good Strand weapons. For a rocket, we have the new Cynosure, which has some really spicy rolls, but unfortunately doesn't get bait and switch. So I like the Envious Arsenal and Bipod roll. But if you have a boss that needs a crit to hit, Scintillation is a really good option since it can roll with bait and switch. But you could always go with a classic like a grenade launcher, like Wicked Sister, that can roll with Envious Arsenal and bait and switch for some really good damage. Well, there you have it, Guardians. This build melts everything with your primary weapon and creates a ton of Threadlings in the process. But if you want to see 5 Titan builds geared for Episode Heresy, then go check out this video here. But remember, mastering this build is only the beginning. Experiment with different combinations and tweak your loadouts to suit your playstyle. If you found this video helpful or just enjoyed seeing a new perspective, feel free to like the video and comment down below on what you might change or how you'd improve the Barrow Dyad Peacekeeper build. Keep an eye out for future videos as we continue to explore the ever-evolving world of Destiny 2. Until then, may the threads of fate be ever in your favor. This is Lucky Mech signing off. See you on the next adventure, Guardians.